Hi guys, Britt, Studio Miscast here. I know I promised a Smart Doll Cortex kind of Q&A video, kind of like your questions answered. So here it is. I have Kizuna with me. Just to recap, if you didn't know, Kizuna is a Cortex hybrid, so that's why I'm doing this Q&A. You can see her seams. And I've taken her to California. I've taken her out on car rides, like pretty much everywhere. So I feel like I've done a really good job of kind of like testing her out, and I can pretty much answer hopefully most of your questions. So I'm gonna read from my phone because there's a lot. So first of all, thank you all of you so much for taking the time to ask your questions. I really want to do more of these videos where I can kind of like offer up some of my experience or like expertise on things like my other dolls, like behind me, like photo stuff, video stuff, whatever. So that's the goal. Someone asked, how do you like Cortex? Is she lighter, heavier, about the same as vinyl? Happy she's available in Cortex. Kizuna, as she's one of the molds I'd like to get. So how do I like it? Is she heavier than vinyl? So I think Danny Choo actually put out a post a while back about how Cortex is in compared to vinyl. They're like the same weight, essentially. I'd actually have to weigh them to know the difference. Honestly, their weight's the same. It's really just construction and like posing. If you want to learn more about Cortex, and I have a wonderful review video out where I review Kizuna, please head down. I'll put that link down below so you can watch that. I go into depth about her posing, things like that. Cortex smooth or does it have a texture? So yes and no. The texture is smooth, essentially. I also mentioned this in my other video, but Kizuna the plastic is sandblasted, and it's a technique that Danny uses so that the plastic looks matte and it matches vinyl. So again, she's the hybrid, so her hands are vinyl, her head is vinyl, and actually I changed her bust, so her bust is now vinyl too. And so the sandblasting helps the texture and the coloring to match the vinyl. So someone's asking if the price will vary drastically or slightly. So nobody knows about the price yet. We'll know soon. However, when I bought her at Anime NYC, she was $450, and that was like the full set. She came with this shirt, these shorts, the stain-resistant panties, not these boots, but she came with similar Takashin boots, actually the prototypes, and stain-resistant socks, stuff like that. So that's the con price, the full set price with the clothing, so we don't actually know how much Cortex is going to cost. I would also love to know that. Do they stain more or less? How hard is it to remove stains? So, if you have not seen Danny's posts, Cortex does not stain, which is amazing. I'm gonna refrain from cursing, but I really want to because it's the best. I come from a background of BJDs, which you probably see behind me, and I'm used to dolls not staining, so for me that's a real big plus that they don't stain. How hard is it to remove stains? Well, she might get like dirty or smudges. Just use a magic eraser, it's really easy. Do their seams open often? So I also went over this in my other review video, so definitely check that out. But no, in general they don't like pop open, but there's a few different joints that kind of gap and kind of not bow, but you know, gap a little bit. That's the best I can explain it, due to kind of the movement of the joint and like the pressure there. So the two that I noticed like big time are her bust. If you have the Cortex bust, sometimes her arm will gap a little bit, and then her inner thighs when she sits. So, and that's not all the time, but that's the three I noticed that were the biggies. Is it harder to access the eyes or is the head the same? So, again, she is the final version, so I can't really speak for that, but I do know that the Cortex head is going to be a faceplate, so it should be actually maybe easier. I would imagine. I read that the pre-assembled Cortex would be glued and made not to pop. So yes, I believe that some of the Cortex will be glued. They can be glued, so even if you have a Cortex that isn't glued, or you buy one that isn't, or you buy the kit, you can glue them. I am really hoping to do a video of that in the future and just kind of show you how you can fix your Cortex and kind of, you know, clean her up a little bit. Someone else asked regarding the seam popping, is it worth it to glue the doll together? Or would that eliminate the ability to fix or adjust the inner skeleton? So, is it worth it to glue the doll together? I'm going to answer both of these at the same time. So, if you want to access the skeleton, and if you glue the parts, it will be harder to access the frame. You're going to have to crack that glue open. So for anyone that's done a model kit, like a Gundam, Gunpla, any of the frame arms girls, or the Megami devices, or just like any kit, in order to pull pieces apart or change them or pop them off frames, you're gonna have to pop the glue and chisel it out. So I wouldn't recommend gluing that if you do plan on accessing the frame, or for people that are concerned about possibly like if the frame breaks or something and having to, you know, take the doll apart. That could be an issue, I'm not sure. I'd have to, you know, test and see if something breaks. How does it feel compared to the vinyl version? So this is a lot, Cortex is a lot smoother than the vinyl. If you feel vinyl, sometimes when you're putting tight clothing on, like leggings or like the jean shorts or something, there's a resistance there. And not that vinyl has a more texture than Cortex, but I do think Cortex is smoother, it's slicker. I find it's easier to dress her because she feels more like my resin dolls, because she has that smoothness that the vinyl doesn't. But it doesn't bother me, and it doesn't bother me that vinyl dolls are harder to dress, although sometimes it can be, you know, annoying. Do you have to be more gentle with Cortex and vinyl? No, absolutely not. In some cases, you can actually manhandle Cortex more than vinyl. I'm actually a lot more brave with Kizuna and taking her out and posing her and doing whatever than I am with my vinyl girls. I'm a little more careful with them. Even though I know they're sturdy, but Cortex just feels that much more sturdy to me. Do the seams catch on fabric or threads of clothes? No, they absolutely don't. And I'm sorry, you can't really feel this from the video, but if you see her seams, there is, like, you feel it, but it's not, they're flush pretty much. Like, you feel it, but it's there, but nothing catches. It doesn't bother her posing, nothing gets stuck. Honestly, things get stuck more in, like, the doll's joints when you're putting on jackets and stuff, which, you know, is normal for doll owners. Please give us some experience of yours about Cortex. So I'm not going to go too much into this. I'm really just going to direct you to my other Cortex review video, because that's really where my experience lies, and I go over her in a lot of detail. But my experience really doesn't go beyond buying her from Anime NYC, taking a crap ton of photos of her, posing her a lot, and just testing her out, really. And traveling. We went on a plane together. Someone else asks, if you bend her torso a certain way, do the seams pop? Does that inhibit some of the ways you can pose her? So, yes, if there is the Cortex bust, I have noticed that that bust seam pops. You actually, again, go to my other video. I actually am posing her in that video, and you hear her seam pop. So definitely go there, check it out. It's not like the whole thing falls apart, it just kind of pops a little bit because of that, that stress pressure there. And yes, it inhibits sometimes the way she poses, so I noticed that her neck couldn't pose. The range of motion was a little bit less than vinyl because of her Cortex bust. Sitting, I also noticed that she like kind of leans back a little bit. I feel like she doesn't sit as like far up as the vinyl girls, so that's something I did notice. Since changing her out to a vinyl bust, that's gone away. So For anyone that's concerned about that, vinyl busts, they're the way to go. But I don't think that, like, I would get another Cortex girl and not change her bust. I didn't think it really limited her that much, but there is some differences. Because it's plastic, you have difficulties posing the head or neck. How much give is there how much give is there, if any? So, like I said, yes, there's a little bit of difficulty. The range of motion is limited, but it's not that limited. It's just a little bit, nothing crazy. But again, like, you don't get that because of her neck. With the vinyl bust, like, you can see her neck moving. That spine part, you see, you don't get that movement right now. Yeah, let me change. So you don't get this very subtle, like, neck movement, which is really, you know, it is what it is. It might bother some people, it might not bother others. Do you like Cortex or vinyl better, and why? That's hard. I like them both for different reasons. I am a modeler. I do Gunpla models, I do the frame arms girls. I love building things, so for me, Cortex is really fun because there's a lot of things that you can do with it, and I cannot wait for the Cortex kits, oh my god, because I want to customize one and make one my own. So for me, that's like really a really good selling point, and plus it's cheaper, obviously. Why would you not? But I do like the appearance and the feel and the aesthetic of vinyl because you don't get seam lines. You get that nice soft like texture and feel. The downside is they stain. I'm sometimes scared to take them out. I'm sometimes scared to have them like bare-legged or barefoot or, you know, stuff like that. So it goes both ways. I like both, honestly. I would own both. I own both. I just got a message on Instagram from a doll I might buy. Oops. It's not a Smart Doll though. Did you glue the pieces together? No, she came not glued, and there will be versions, I believe, that are glued, like I mentioned earlier, but she is not glued. She is completely just snapped together, however, you know, Culture Japan and Danny put her together. So, no glue. How is it with dark clothes? Well, obviously this is not a good example because she's wearing this gorgeous Smart Doll jacket and these gorgeous shorts, and that's not really good because, well, it's good because they're beautiful, but Danny Choo obviously makes things stain resistant as much as he can, but dark clothes are a go. Is it super easy to scratch? How does the weight compare to vinyl? So I already discussed the weight. Again, they're about the same, but scratching. So with vinyl dolls, you have scratches that happen, or like dents or something like that, and a lot of times if you just blast it with a hairdryer, again, vinyl has that like not memory foam, but like it retains the shape. So you kind of can reset that by taking a hairdryer to the dent or whatever, and most of the time it'll like pop back to life and it'll be fine. Cortex is not like that. Cortex is a very hard, well actually, let me go back. The frames are very hard plastic. The outside is hard plastic, but not as hard as the frame. I've noticed when I took her to California, I was a little brave. I left her in these shorts for a lot of times, and we sat her down places, I kneeled her places, so she actually has a few very like light scuffs on the back of her thighs. I'm just feeling them now. I don't think I can really photograph them. One thing I did want to talk about while we're talking about scratches is the clothing. So unlike the vinyl dolls, they don't give. So if you have really tight shorts, kind of like, you know, if you're putting on a pair of jeans and they're a little too tight, you can suck in your stomach and still wear them. Not comfortably, but you can. So vinyl is the same way. It will kind of give, which is kind of the term that's been going around the community. However, Cortex does not give. So these shorts with the stain resistant little panties are a pain in the ass to get on. Let me tell you, I have horrible hand strength, and it's a little tough for me. However, I do like to put her in these shorts without the panties underneath, even though it looks so much cuter with the panties. But it's so much easier to put on than not. Also, some shoes are really, really tight. And I learned this the hard way by shoving her feet into the ankle boots, and I could not get them out for like 10 minutes. And unfortunately, the zipper scuffed the back of her feet. So that might seem like the end of the world to some people, but rest assured, really, if you get a scuff or a scratch, most things you can just buff out with sandpaper or a sanding sponge. I know on the Smart Doll site there's sanding sponges you can buy, so I definitely recommend picking up one of those if you get Cortex, so you can kind of buff out you know, anything like that, and any little light scratches. So it's not the end of the world, but it is a softer material and it doesn't kind of have that bounce back like vinyl does. Are they easy to assemble? Huh, well, I didn't assemble her. I will assemble a Cortex kit when the Cortex kits are available. So I will answer that question when the kits come out. Is Cortex harder to pose? I think this is the last question we have. No, actually. For anyone that I have thrown Kizuna at and has had the opportunity to pose her, or for anyone that already owns a Cortex hybrid, will know that actually I prefer Cortex posing. For the most part, they are really, really solid. She poses actually better, I think, and easier, just smoother. Like the motions seem, I don't know, easier. I just love posing her. I think it's really hard to describe the difference. I think that this is something you'd have to really feel for yourself. Like, you would have to feel one or play with one to really know. If you get the opportunity at a meetup or anything to play with someone else's Cortex doll, please do. Try it out, see if this is for you. Inspect her, look at her, like, her seams. Really, that's the best way, but for all the people that can't necessarily do that, I hope that I've answered your questions. I hope that I've given you a little bit more insight into Cortex. I hope that if you were on the fence about getting the one, you want one now, or that you're definitely like, oh man, like, I'm really glad I didn't buy that because it's definitely not for me. Because it's not for everyone, it's really not. I'm not going to pretend it is. But I do think that Cortex is a really unique addition to anyone's doll collection, whether you're a vinyl collector, a resin collector, whether you have big dolls, small dolls, Lika-chan, A-Zone, whatever. I think it's just like a really unique piece. And for someone like me that collects a lot of different types of dolls and just loves different aesthetics, this fits right in with my style, especially as a modeler. So yeah, even if you don't collect dolls and you're a modeler, get a Cortex. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do. If you have any more questions, like, please leave me a comment, message me, whatever. Happy to help, and for everyone that is excited about the launch, hope you get one soon. Alright, thanks.